Tonight on What the Heck Do I Know's PM Update, Positive Correlation, and Home Insight segments. We're talking again about expat jobs. In an increasingly global economy, it is important to widen your options and experiences, and working as an expat is an excellent way to do it. This show is part 2 and 3 of a 3-part series on being an expat. In our first segment in the series, we covered how to negotiate a salary. In this show, we'll explore ways to find expat jobs and how to plan for moving. Find out the details on this when we return, so stay tuned. Hey guys, I really enjoy making these videos for you, so if you get value from them, please hit like, subscribe, and leave me some comments.
What the Heck Do I Know presents PM Update with Leah and Mia. And now your host, Leah.
Welcome back to Positive Correlations. I'm Leah. Have you ever thought about going to work in another country? If you are adventurous enough to consider it, you can open a literal world of opportunity for yourself and your family. Opportunity is out there, but oftentimes you won't find it in easy situations or in your backyard. Tonight we hear from Elizabeth Brooks, seasoned expat engineer, and Julie Ellis, who is an HR professional from a large multinational company, and their advice on being an expat. Mia, what can you tell us about your stories tonight? Well, Leah, they both have great advice from their perspectives. Elizabeth gives us information from her personal experience as well as from other expat friends. And Julie has more of an official perspective after 25 years in the business. Julie says that things have changed over time, and as countries, companies, and contracts continue to change, so will the specifics. But the project management process of initiate, plan, execute, monitor and control, and close will always be good advice. I agree. That is always good advice. Thanks, Mia. Do you know who said, "Things may come to those who wait, but only the things left by those who hustle"? Get the answer to this question and Mia's stories when we return, so stay tuned. Both Elizabeth and Julie agree that the first place to start if you're considering an expat job is with your friends and family. If you're lucky enough to have an expat in your life, then talking to them about what it is really like or their experiences is going to give you the best information. If you are not so fortunate, then this show is the next best thing. Elizabeth says that friends and family are definitely the most effective gateway into finding an expat job, just like they would be in your hometown. Having a personal connection with a company or a location will give you a little bit of an edge over someone who doesn't have those connections. Julie says that the friends and family edge is real for a couple of different reasons. The obvious one is a recommendation from a known and trusted source, but it can also help you understand what a typical process is for that company and indicate your longevity with the company, all of which are helpful. The biggest advantage for you in being familiar with the location, if you've never worked outside of your own country before, is having a clear understanding of the pros and cons that might not be available on a website. The advantage for the company is that since you have a realistic expectation of what this situation will be like, you're much less likely to leave once you get there. Companies spend thousands of dollars in support personnel, visas, air travel, and mobilization packages that they need to be confident that they will recoup that cost in the value you provide once you get there. Staying for the entire term of your short-term contract, or several years if a long-term or indefinite contract, is the way you can support this goal. If you don't have a strong family or friend connection, the next best option is someone you actually know from your LinkedIn network. Depending on the connection, you probably won't get as much detailed information or assistance, but you will have a better idea of the company, location, and industry in that area than someone doing internet searches. The next best option for finding opportunities is the internet and social media. How you approach this depends on if you're looking for a job in a specific location or a specific industry. Follow the appropriate groups and make connections based on your preferences on LinkedIn and other social media sites. Find and join groups that post information on all expat news and locations. You can also find companies that have an international presence and go to their website to look for posted vacancies. If you don't know any, simple searches like top countries in X region is a good place to start. And of course, job board sites. The top 5 as ranked by Zeddy in mid-2020 were Indeed, Glassdoor, LinkedIn, Google for Jobs, and Monster. When you find opportunities that look interesting to you, make sure you check out the companies, assuming that you have that information from the posting, or at least before interviewing if you're contacted. Julie notes that it is also a good idea to go directly to a company's website to check open positions there. Not all positions are advertised on external sites, so you may find more information and opportunities by doing this. Elizabeth also recommends checking out companies you are unfamiliar with. Make sure they are legitimate, have a good reputation, and a mission that is aligned with your values and expectations. If possible, it is also a good idea to make sure they have mature processes for immigration and visa processing. Snags in this part of the process can cost a lot of time, and if they are not done properly, can leave you stranded or in very frustrating situations. Elizabeth and Julie both agree that the next step is to apply, and apply some more. This is the frustrating part about job search that is relevant no matter where you are or what you're looking for. Julie advises to make sure you read the qualifications and make sure that you are the right fit for the position, otherwise you're just wasting time. HR and recruiting departments are generally overloaded, but especially in large companies. Make sure you are following the directions and including all necessary information when you submit your application the first time. Elizabeth notes that if it is possible to follow up with recruiting, then you should absolutely do this. In larger companies, this isn't likely, but if you have a personal connection with that company from family and friends, use it. If you aren't already following the companies you applied with on social media, do that now. This way you will see company updates, new opportunities, and often you will see posts for hot jobs that you may be qualified for. Unfortunately, the next step is to wait, and then sometimes wait some more. This is why the follow-up is so important if you can do it, and you need to keep applying while you wait. Different companies work at a different pace, and some open positions are more critical than others. So applying for a similar post with Company A might take weeks to get a contact, but Company B might call you the next day. As far as the finding and applying part of the process, concentrate on opportunities or companies where you have a personal connection of some kind. No matter how weak the connection, it will likely provide better results than applying to other companies. Elizabeth says she had a friend in the UAE who managed to get an interview for her first overseas position in France because she had an uncle who worked for the company in the US. Even though he worked in a completely different section of the company and never worked as an expat, with his recommendation, she at least got an interview. Once she had been in France for a while and established her reputation with the company, she was offered other opportunities and locations when she was ready to move again. With some luck and all of your hard work, you will eventually be contacted for an interview. The most important part of this process is to be prepared. Practice doing Skype or Zoom type interviews if you haven't done them before. Know something about the company and their mission. If you don't remember it from your research you did earlier, refresh your memory. Know something about what the company is doing at that location. Be aware of local cultural climate and lifestyle. The more familiar you are with it, the better candidate you will be. If the local language is not one you speak, start learning at least some common phrases and basic words. Show you have a commitment. This is also the time to mention any connection you have to the place or company. For example, my friend Jim told me how great you were to work for. Or, My aunt lived here in this country for 2 years and has told me how much she enjoyed it. Any personal touch you can add that lets the interviewers know that you are familiar with the company, the location, and the business culture is going to give you an edge over just being qualified, and will also likely be a memorable part of the interview for the team making the decision. Just make sure it's a positive one. Elizabeth and Julie both agree that there are many paths to finding an expat position, and these steps are just guidelines they have seen work for others. They both wish you the best of luck in your search and finding your dream expat job. To recap the project management process here, the initiation phase is deciding to look for an expat job and have an idea of where you would like to be. The planning phase was narrowing down where the opportunities for you and your skill sets are needed and where you're likely to have the best results. You should still explore all opportunities you're qualified for, but concentrating most of your effort on where you have a connection. Execution is finding the open positions, applying, researching the companies, and preparing for your interview. Monitoring and control is doing whatever follow-up you can and tracking the positions you have applied for. And closing, of course, would be accepting a position. Great information, Mia. Thanks for that report. Next up in our Home Insight segment, what happens after you get an offer or accept a position? Moving is a stressful situation even under the best of circumstances, and moving to a new country where so many things are unknown can be even more stressful. Mia talks more with Elizabeth and Julie about how to plan, questions to ask, and things you need to know or consider before making your big move. Now for the answer to our quote question from earlier. Who said, "Things may come to those who wait, but only the things left by those who hustle"? That was Abraham Lincoln. And for our second half quote question, who said, "And suddenly you know it's time to start something new and trust the magic of beginnings"? The answer to that question and Mia's continuing story when we return. Welcome back to PM Update Home Insight segment. So now you have an offer for an overseas position, or maybe you've already accepted it, and are wondering what the next steps will be. Mia has more insights from Elizabeth and Julie on the things you should know and what to ask if you don't. Moving to a new country can feel intimidating at first, so before you jump in, there are quite a few things that you need to consider and decide on. Elizabeth and Julie have some advice to share and helpful tips on what you can do and questions to ask to make the process go as smoothly as possible. Julie says that most of the information you need should be provided by the company that is hiring you, but there are always questions you should ask before finalizing the negotiation process. The biggest question is whether or not the position is considered accompanied, which means, are they only sponsoring just you, or are you able to bring your family with you? Obviously, if you want to bring your family and that is not part of the deal, then this is one thing that is likely to be a deal breaker. Depending on the location, you may be able to still bring your family, but without company support, it may be too expensive to justify accepting the position. You should be aware that in many countries, if you are not a citizen, your children will not be able to go to the public schools. So you will need to homeschool or pay for private education. Sometimes companies pay for this and sometimes they don't. That should be spelled out in your offer package. Unless a position is also offered to your spouse, they will typically be on a spouse visa, and they will not be able to work in that country unless you find a job where they can be sponsored for a work visa as well. If you are used to having a double income, this may not be feasible for you. If you don't have a family to bring or they intend to stay at home, then it isn't an issue. Let's say you've received an accompanied offer and the whole family is moving with you. What do you want to do with your house? Part of an expat relocation package should include some kind of benefit to cover this, either storage or shipping of personal household goods. Generally, you pick one and don't get both. Which you pick depends on your personal situation and what kind of housing you will have when you get to the new location. Is the company providing furnished or unfurnished accommodation, or will you be getting your own place? Do you want to keep your house empty while you're away? Have family utilize it? Rent it out? Or sell it? As a single person, Elizabeth chose to have her household items put into storage and rented out her condo. She hired a property manager to take care of it while she was away. Her new company covered the packing and storage fees for the duration of her employment with them. If the relocation benefits are not clear in your offer package, make sure you ask the questions, and your package should be rewritten to clarify it officially. She also recommended having a yard sale and not bringing a lot of stuff with you. It will be old and need replacing by the time you come back, and moving large, bulky furniture is a hassle and may not fit in the housing that is available. If you do plan to bring most of your household goods, do some research on customs and what your new country will allow before packing. Julie agreed that all of the details about housing, schools, and relocation packages should be spelled out, but sometimes companies make mistakes or leave things out because they offer different packages to different people. It is important for you to ask the questions if it isn't clear or you don't understand the offer. She also noted that the decisions you make will largely depend on how long your offer is for. Are you being offered a yearly contract, a 5-year contract, or indefinite duration? The shorter the term, the less advantage you will get from renting or selling your home. Elizabeth says that how often you plan on returning home is a big factor in your decisions too. For U.S. citizens, there are significant tax benefits to staying out of the country for most of the year. But if you plan to return often, you will miss out on these. If your family is staying behind, you could always plan to meet them for vacation outside the U.S. Most other countries do not assess taxes on their citizens that work outside of their home country, so it isn't an issue for them. Julie says that some contracts allow for a travel allowance as well. Ask if the company includes this as part of your leave if it isn't clear in the documentation they send you. If it isn't included, get an idea of what your round-trip travel will be and factor that into your budget. Elizabeth says the fun part is learning about the culture of your new home. The company provided some basic information. She learned more through searching the internet, talked to some people she already knew who were there, and joined a group called Internations where she made new friends after she arrived. Coming from a hot location herself, it didn't take her much time to get used to the weather. But if she was coming from someplace like Michigan, it would have been a tough year. There are a lot of angles to consider in making the move to be an expat, but it doesn't have to be intimidating. As Julie says, the company should help answer questions or address any concerns you may have. Some companies even have a sponsor program where they put you in touch with someone who is already there to make the transition easier for new personnel coming in. Elizabeth said that it seemed really intimidating to her at first, but ended up being really fun, and agreed that the company was really helpful during the entire process. I can see why the whole process might seem scary if you haven't done it before. It does seem like there are a lot of benefits to it too, though. Thanks, Mia, for spending all that time with Elizabeth and Julie to break it down for all of our viewers. Now the answer to our last quote question of the day. Who said, "And suddenly you know it's time to start something new and trust the magic of beginnings"? That was Meister Eckhart. That's all for What the Heck Do I Know's PM Update with Leah and Mia and our Positive Correlations and Home Insights segment for this week. Thank you for watching and see you next time on the next episode of PM Update. Good night. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. I love seeing comments too.